I'll never forget the night my life changed forever. The moment I saw her betraying eyes, I knew I would never be the same again. Milana, my wife, the person I trusted most in the world, had cheated on me. And I decided to take revenge in a way that she would remember forever.
Thank you for watching my channel. I create videos for your enjoyment. Please subscribe if you want to support my efforts, it's very important to me. I apologize in advance for any mistakes, dubbing is done by neural network. Please point out mistakes in the comments so I can correct them.
Milana and I live in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. We both make little money, but we always tried to make our lives brighter and more fulfilling. Everything seemed to be going well for us. But I guess I was blind. I was working my ass off trying to provide for us, while Milana appeared to be spending her time in a completely different way. That day I came home earlier than usual. There was a small corporate party at work that ended faster than planned. I thought I would surprise Milana by bringing her favorite cakes. But instead of joy, I saw hell. As I approached the door, I heard laughter. A man's laughter. My heart beat faster, but I forced myself to go in. The picture I saw is forever etched in my memory. On our couch, where we usually watched movies together, sat my wife with her arms around some man. They were both in their underwear, their bodies entwined. I could feel the blood pounding in my temples. Milana jumped up when she saw me. Her face first turned red and then pale. The man, who turned out to be her co-worker Igor, only grinned and began to dress. I couldn't say a word. I stood there like a paralyzed man while Milana tried to make excuses, to say something about it being just a moment of weakness. I didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I just turned around and walked away. I lay awake that night, replaying every moment of our time together in my head. I was disgusted and hurt. But along with the pain came the desire for revenge. I couldn't just forgive such a betrayal. The next day I knew what I was going to do. I had a plan in my head that would hurt her as much as she had hurt me. But I needed an ally, and I knew exactly who would help me do it. Vika had been Milana's friend since childhood. She was beautiful, smart, and always knew what she wanted. There had always been some kind of spark between us, but we never crossed the line. Now I decided it was time to break that rule. I called Vika and invited her to meet me. We met at a cafe where I told her about Milana's betrayal. Vika was shocked, but in her eyes I saw a shadow of doubt, as if she had suspected something for a long time. I told her my plan, and she agreed without a second thought. Perhaps she felt something for me too, something she was ready to use against her friend. Everything was ready. In the evening I invited Milana and Vika to dinner, saying I wanted to discuss our future. Milana, trying to make amends, agreed. Vika came later, holding a bottle of wine. We all sat down at the table, and I started talking about how important it was for us to be honest with each other. When the moment was right, I stood up, walked over to Vika and started kissing her. Milana froze, not believing her eyes. She jumped up, trying to stop us, but I held her back. Vika played along, sinking into the passion. I saw tears come to Milana's eyes as she tried to understand what was happening. She screamed that this was crazy, that I was out of my mind. But I didn't care. When Milana saw me kissing Vika, her face contorted with pain and surprise. She couldn't believe that I, her faithful husband, could do such a thing. She screamed that it was crazy, that I was crazy, but I only pulled Vika tighter against me. Vika responded to my kiss with such passion that I felt the heat spilling over my entire body. Milana, crying, tried to push us away, but I was adamant. I knew that if she could stop us now, all my revenge would crumble. I looked her straight in the eyes, never breaking away, showing her that this was all just the beginning. I saw her face contort in pain, her eyes filling with tears. Vika and I moved slowly toward the couch, the same couch where I had caught Milana with Igor. Milana begged me to stop, her voice shaking with tears and terror. But I wasn't going to stop. I wanted her to feel the depth of my frustration and pain. I wanted her heart to break as much as mine did. Vika supported me through everything. Her hands slid down my body, her lips greedily searching mine. She understood that this moment was important to me, and she was willing to go all the way. We lowered ourselves onto the couch and I began to undress her slowly, showing Milana every step we took. Vika started downstairs and knelt across from me, opening her mouth. This wasn't part of our plan, but I gave her what she wanted. It was an unforgettable sensation. Vika did things that I never dreamed of doing when I was with Milana. I, in turn, made Vika feel really good too, trying harder than ever to bring the girl to the peak in every possible way. Milana couldn't look away. Her tears were streaming down her cheeks and she sank powerlessly to the floor, wrapping her arms around herself. Her sobs were the only sound in the room besides Vika and me moaning. I could see her face contorting in pain, her whole body shaking. Her heart was breaking into pieces right before my eyes. Vika and I continued on, ignoring Milana. Every move we made was like a knife in her heart. I could see her eyes fill with more pain, her soul screaming with despair. I knew what I was doing, and I knew it was right. This was my revenge, and she needed to feel it fully. We continued despite her screams and pleas. I wanted her to feel what I felt. All I could think about at that moment was my pain and how to quench it. Milana fell to her knees, covering her face with her hands. Her sobs broke the silence. I saw her tears, her humiliation and suffering. When I finished, I turned to Milana. She was sitting on the floor, shaking and crying. Her eyes were full of pain and suffering. I felt the anger and resentment begin to recede, giving way to emptiness. Milana slowly raised her head, her lips trembling as she tried to say something. But I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. I stood up and walked over to her. She stared at me, her eyes begging for forgiveness, but I was adamant. I leaned down and whispered in her ear, "Now you know how it feels, slut." She closed her eyes and the tears rolled down her cheeks again. I knew her pain wouldn't go away quickly, that she would live with this memory for a long time. Vika and I left, leaving Milana alone in our apartment. She stayed there, sitting on the floor with her arms wrapped around herself, as if trying to protect herself from the pain. Her sobs echoed in my head for a long time, but I knew I had done the right thing. I had avenged my broken heart. After that event, our lives changed forever. Milana and I separated, and I began to build my life anew. Vika was with me, supporting me and helping me through all the difficulties. But even she could not completely heal the wounds left by the betrayal. I often think about that night and what I did. Perhaps I went too far, perhaps another way could have been found. But in that moment, I saw no other way. My pain was so great that I wanted Milana to feel it too. Milana tried to contact me, but I ignored her. After a week, I decided to talk to her. She begged me to forgive her, cried and swore it would never happen again. But I didn't believe her anymore. I had become a different person, hardened and distrustful. We decided to separate because there was no point in continuing to live together. A few months passed. I started a new life, but the pain was still with me. I don't know if I could truly forgive her. Maybe it will stay with me forever. But one thing I realized for sure is that cheating destroys not only relationships, but also the souls of those who once loved each other. I look at my reflection in the mirror and see a completely different person. A person who has lost faith in love and trust. But maybe someday I can start over, with a clean slate. For now, I live with what I have and try to find my way in this confusing world. The story I told is a lesson for everyone. Betrayal can destroy everything that has been built over the years. And sometimes revenge doesn't bring relief, it only makes the wound worse. But everyone chooses their own path, and I chose mine, no matter how cruel it was.